Year 1960. We are in a village made up of only 2 long buildings and the people who live in them. Thomas leaves his house on his bicycle, holding back his urgency. Jacob, his father, follows him, but the boy rides away without looking at him, determined not to stop. Next to the small forest, Thomas crosses paths with Plague, the mailman. He asks if his parents are fighting again, and Thomas replies yes, as the road grows quieter. Later, Jacob enters the room where Marta is praying in silence. He approaches her with half-hearted apologies and seeks her body. He insists that he needs her. He tries to touch her. Marta pushes him away. He falls to the floor and moves away, a hollow plea on his lips. At the same time, in another bed, Agnes tries to get her husband, Teacher, to respond to her touch. He avoids her, gets up and refuses any contact. The distance between them grows as the night goes on. At that moment, Teacher notices smoke rising from the forest. He grabs his shotgun and moves through the trees, alert for the intruder. The figure turns out to be Plague, sitting by a campfire, reading the letters he is supposed to deliver. Plague puts out the fire, hurriedly packs everything up and leaves just in time. Teacher is left with his heart racing and the forest silent, suspecting that something else is being hidden. That night, Thomas gives his mother a letter that Plague gave him. Marta hides it immediately, as if she doesn't want Jacob to see it. When he asks, she says it must be a reply from a friend. The next day, Marta opens the letter alone. Her friend suggests she wear ugly dresses and avoid perfume so as not to entice her husband. Marta puts the paper away carefully, as if it were a fragile defense. At the same time, in the butcher shop, Jacob looks at his employee's chest and his desire is ignited. He rushes home to look for Marta with urgent intent, but he doesn't find her. A sound under the table stops him. He finds her hiding and grabs her, but she refuses to be touched. Annoyed, he returns to the butcher shop, ambushes his employee, and takes her to the back room. He forces her to take off her blouse. The woman manages to escape before he can go any further. She goes out front under the curious gaze of the other women. Jacob isn't seeking pleasure, he's seeking power, while the street watches in silence. Shortly after, Agnes greets Jacob from the window with a familiar gesture that borders on flirtation. Later, Jacob talks to Marta about his problems. She confesses that she wants affection, not to be used. She says that he only wants her for her body, that she feels like a cow always available. In response to her complaint, Jacob comes closer and gropes her. He insists it's her fault for wearing beautiful dresses and keeping her hair long, that her beauty provokes him. Meanwhile, Thomas is in the woods with an unknown woman who arrived in the village but doesn't live in the buildings. She invites him to enter a small pond and he agrees, immersing himself in a secret that pulses beneath the surface. Soon, Teacher is wandering around the area. The woman and Thomas hide underwater, breathing through bamboo branches, motionless, while the danger passes above their heads. Plague notices the situation and distracts Teacher with words, opening up an escape route. Thus, Thomas and his friend emerge from the water unseen and escape the brink of disaster. That night, during dinner, Marta carries out her plan. She dresses in the least desirable clothes, a long-sleeve sweater under an ugly dress. The table is loaded with silent tension. She barely eats. Jacob complains about her lack of appetite and looks at her with annoyance. Annoyed, Marta leaves the house and creates a scene that makes her hostility clear. Jacob chases after her again and again until, exhausted, he forces her to come inside, and the calm that returns is not restful but restrained. A few days later, the children of the village are taken to a freak show. Among the exhibits, they find a man of color locked in a cage, displayed like an exotic animal. Thomas is the only one who is disturbed by the humiliation of the captivity. His gaze recognizes the humanity that the adults choose not to see, and his decision begins to take shape in silence. That very night, Thomas takes action. He decides to free the man, and does so with the help of Plague, who gives him the key to the lock. At dawn, the news spreads through the village and the search begins with hurried steps, voices heading into the forest. Meanwhile, the freed man is in Thomas's house. Everyone is too distracted to notice the intruder, and the danger hides inside. Then Thomas tries to help him escape. He climbs onto his shoulders and covers them with a long coat. The game he plays with Plague becomes a disguise. Teacher walks past them without recognizing him, although she asks Thomas if he knows anything about the fugitive. The boy assures her that he hasn't seen him. That night, Teacher returns to the forest, drawn by the smoke. When she arrives, she only finds the campfire still burning, while the man hides in a hole underground and holds his breath. Although she doesn't find who she's looking for, Teacher catches Plague reading the mail. Among the papers, she discovers an adult magazine. Teacher reports the mailman, and the next morning, he is taken away from the village, leaving his letters without an owner. Shortly after, Thomas visits the man hiding in the forest. He sees that the man is making a homemade weapon out of pieces of glass, a precarious defense against a hostile world. Later, Teacher returns to the forest. A noise startles him. He raises his shotgun and fires before seeing who he's aiming at. The bullet hits its mark. Teacher has killed the unknown woman who lived among the trees. The silence is broken by an irreversible act. The fugitive witnesses the scene, motionless, and fear turns into suppressed rage. At the same time, Agnes arrives at the butcher shop without warning and closes the door. She walks to the back room. Jacob follows her, breathing heavily. Meanwhile, Teacher lifts the woman's body from the ground and drags it, looking for a place to hide it. When he sees the pond, a cold and calculated idea forms in his mind. Next, he knocks over a small statue in the woods, ties the body with the woman's own clothes, and sinks it in the water. This way, he prevents it from floating and being found by anyone. When he tries to leave, the fugitive emerges from the shadows and wounds him with his homemade weapon. The forest swallows a scream and leaves a trail of blood on the ground. Weeks later, Teacher returns to the village after spending time in the city due to his injuries. He wears dark glasses. He has lost his sight because of the attack. He walks slowly along the same path he once watched over, now plunged into darkness. The village's balance is quietly disturbed as other eyes grow accustomed to his new blindness. That afternoon, Jacob brings food to Marta, who has been bedridden for days without eating. At first, he asks her to eat and gently strokes her hair with calculated tenderness. She says she's not hungry. Jacob explodes, throws the plate against the wall, and leaves a mark from the impact in the plaster. He opens the living room windows so the neighbors can watch everything, as if it were a live show. The women watch in silence, kneeling, as if violence were part of the daily ritual. In another house, Teacher looks for his shotgun. Agnes tells him she put it away and that now that he can't see, he doesn't need it. Teacher loses his patience. He lashes out in anger and demands to know where the weapon is. The house vibrates with the restrained blow. Agnes points to the closet. Teacher rummages through everything, feels around, recognizes the metal, and grabs the shotgun. He puts on his coat and leaves the house. Agnes follows him and tries to stop him. He hits her in the face and she lets go, resigned to the pain. The next day, it is discovered that the fugitive has been living in Plash's house, taking advantage of the postman's absence to survive without being seen. Unfortunately for him, Teacher knows. He waits for him in the dark. He orders him to sit and points the barrel at him. At that moment, Teacher begins to cry. Fragility overcomes impulse and the shot never comes. Instead of pulling the trigger, he leaves without hurting him, dragging along a sorrow with no escape. When he gets home, Teacher looks for Agnes. She stays silent so he won't find her. When he is about to go upstairs, Agnes tries to leave with her suitcases. A faint noise gives her away. Teacher moves toward where he thinks she is. Agnes silently gives him a kiss and then leaves the house, leaving him alone with his shotgun and his blindness. Meanwhile, Jacob is holding a shovel. A woman from the village rides by on a bicycle and falls into a pit he dug. Jacob climbs down into the hole with her, tries to force himself on her, and starts taking off her clothes. The woman screams and struggles, but the pit traps her like a perfect snare. The air in the village grows heavy, as if everyone knows, but no one intervenes. Thomas approaches and sees his father in the hole, trying to take something she doesn't want to give. Jacob looks at him without saying a word. Thomas rides away on his bicycle quickly, the image burned into his eyes. When he returns home, the boy serves food to his father and Marta remains lying on the sofa. More people kneel by the window, looking at her as if she were a saint from whom they ask for a miracle, and the house becomes an altar. The next day, some priests visit Marta and pray for her. They find Thomas hiding under the table, pull him out, and point out that his mother is very special. The son wants nothing to do with it and withdraws with firm rejection. In the forest, the fugitive walks and sees some frozen legs under a bush. He digs with trembling hands and finds Teacher's body, dead from hypothermia. At the same time, Thomas watches as the priests sanctify his mother, while more people arrive on a bus. From the window, he sees the fugitive walking away among the trees. Immediately, Thomas runs into the forest to escape the tourists and reaches the lagoon, now completely frozen, like a dull mirror. He walks on the ice, finds a clearing without snow, and kneels down to look through the layer. Below, drifting aimlessly beneath the thick glass, is the body of his friend. Thomas breaks down in tears and moves away from the ice with unsteady steps, carrying the weight of the secret in his chest. At that moment, a bus arrives and Plash gets off. The mailman approaches the boy and asks him what has happened in the village. Thomas doesn't answer, but his eyes hold a story that has yet to find words, while the silence of the place hangs suspended in a tension that does not dissipate.